Welcome to my world once more. Another time, another day, another period for acquisition of knowledge. Knowledge is power, health is wealth. Today, I try to see a better way of presenting albinos' problems and how we can acquire knowledge on albinos. That's why I have decided to bring a similar situation and do a comparative study of albinism and sickle cell disease. The choices that we have in life depends on the knowledge we have acquired. That much we have now known from the presentation that I did the last time. We need to acquire more knowledge so that we can have more choices. And when we have more choices, our decisions would really give quality life to our children and even the world that we shall be leaving behind. The study today, like I said, is albinism and sickle cell disease study. That is a comparative study analysis of the similarity and differences. So if you like my presentation, you are welcome. Just click the like button. Subscribe, press the subscribe, and you'll be happy you did. Starting albinism and sickle cell diseases studies. The effort we shall be making will start with outline. The outlines, background to the study, introduction, comparative studies, that is the similarities and differences, and finally conclusion. The background study. The two disorders were seen in primordial days and even now by some as spiritual problems. Albinos were believed to be possessing spiritual powers. This is also true for sicklers, who were considered spirits, being that they go and come back. They usually go as children. They don't last long. When they are given birth to, they go, they die, and they come back. On this basis, they are therefore discriminated against, and this surely would affect them both psychologically and mentally. And you can understand why this study is necessary. To assist also the albinos and sicklers, it will be to educate society about the cause of albinism and sickle cell disease and diminish the prevalence of these diseases, raising awareness of the fact that the biologic bond may increase the chances of acquiring certain genetic disorder. Many researchers suggest informing the population by means of radio programs and schools regarding the implication of the consanguineous relationship where people who are carriers are marrying each other, demystifying the disease and promoting social integration. The genetic cause still does not sell amongst people who are not literate enough. So that is clear, but nevertheless, effort should be made to spread it, and whatever means, whether even at the vernacular level, so that they can understand and thereby make certain changes in their choice. WHO pilot survey on albinism too recommends that public health should focus on educational, medical, and occupational settings. So the WHO has even helped with creation of the International Day for both disorders, and that goes a long way to really help in diminishing the prevalence. The introduction. Albinism is an autosomal recessive gene inheritance issue that presents as oculocutaneous or ocular albinism. When we say oculocutaneous, we are talking of both the skin and the eye. The ocular one talks about the eye. You can see these are affected by both the skin and the eye. But luckily, probably they are not in Africa, or where the burns would cause skin cancer. Albinism is a recessive genetic condition and can be diagnosed by fetoscopy between the 16th and 20th week of pregnancy. That is very useful. There are two different forms of albinism. A partial lack of melanin is known as hypomelanism, and the total absence of melanin is known as amelanism or amenalosis. Sickle cell disease on its own is also an autosomal recession inheritance problem disorder that presents as a group of inherited blood cell disorder. That is, the hemoglobin is the one affected. The baby you're seeing is already a sickler by the genetic makeup of that child. But chances are, if the parents had made the wise choice, it depends on the parents anyway, because some will know and still go on to make that choice. Comparative study. Albinism and sickle cell disease are both problems that result in discrimination of both persons carrying the disorder. Sickle cell disease has enjoyed more educational exposition than albinism, which has increased the longevity of those suffering from this disease. A pilot survey by WHO of albinism has shown the severity of the discrimination, which has now necessitated more education of the society on albinism. That's why my effort is shared in that direction and necessitate more consideration for diminishing the prevalence of albinism. Similarity on the comparative level, let's look at the etiology. They are both inborn errors of metabolism, but with recent development in genetic study, they have been found to be autosomal recessive genes inheritance from both parents. What is regarded as the implication of consanguineous relationship, where they, like I earlier explained, carriers marrying carriers, both parents donating their X recessive genes. With genomics and gene mapping, they have found the loci of the gene, and in the future, probably correction things could be done at that locus, so that there could be cure. This is a recap of what I have been saying all along. It's the single factor inheritance with respect to homozygous. When you don't have any of these things, you are having the dominant gene shared. But when you have homozygous of having the recessive genes, both the recessive genes, then you suffer the disorder. The heterozygous genotype are called the carriers. To classify genetic disorder, you have the autosomal, that is those ones that are not sex-linked, and the chromosome 1 to 22, whereas the 23rd chromosome paired is the X and Y gene, where you find it there, and the Y signify male. The chromosome plays a lot of great importance in these problems we are talking about. Now let's look at what I earlier explained. Both parents have a functional copy of the gene. The functional one is the A, capital A, while the 40 copy is the small a. And you expect that when carrying, they both carry the 40 one. And in case the 40A mixed with the 40A from both parents, it can result in albinism, or if the problem had been the sickle gene that was shared, the recessive, then you have a 1 in 4 chance of having affected child or unaffected child, both ways. This is the copy, the photogram of the chromosome numbered 1 to 22. They are paired. If you now count them singly, you have 46 chromosomes, and that 46, you find that the point that we are looking at are the area that is called the focus, the locus or plural loci is where the location of these defective genes, if they are paired, appears, and that creates that problem of disorder, which in future could probably be corrected and humanity say bye-bye to this genetic disorder. To understand inborn errors of metabolism from genetic study, it means one gene code for one enzyme. When you're talking of enzyme, you are talking of protein. So we know enzymes are the tyrosinase and also the valine is a protein. Longevity, this is also another area of similarity. Both of these disorders have relatively short lifespans. As you can see, only very few of them live to be 40 or 60 years of age, especially in Africa, where albinos regard the sun as their number one enemy. Albinism groups themselves say more than 90% of people with the condition in Africa die before they reach 40 years old. A recent study estimated the life expectancy of adults with sickle cell disease to be 54. That's more in a developed setting, developed country, which is approximately 20 years shorter than that of normal adult without sickle cell disease. Make reference. The dramatic improvement in the survival of patients with sickle cell disease can be attributed to interventions such as newborn screening, the prophylactic use of antibiotics, penicillin, primary stroke prevention with transcranial Doppler screening, hydroxyurea treatment, and effective vaccination against infection with Haemophilus influenza or Streptococcus pneumonia. The reference is also there. So you can always understand that in terms of longevity, they share both the same similarity. Also in childbearing, they share the similarity of both are also autosomal recessive hereditary disease, and as with oculocutaneous albinism, both parents must carry that recessive gene for their child to be born with albinism. Ditto the sickle cell. The child has a 1 in 4 chance of being born with albinism or sickle cell disease. If just one parent has albinism, sickle cell genes, the child won't have oculocutaneous albinism or sickle cell disease, as the case applies. That child may just become a carrier. And when you talk about the contrast, the difference between the two, in terms of presentation, people with albinism will have the following symptoms: an absence of color in the skin, the hair or eyes, lighter than normal coloring of the skin, hair or eye, patches of skin that have an absence of color, and because of lack of melanin, they are prone to cancer of the skin because of the UV light of the sun. Sickle cell disease sufferers too present with sickle cell crisis of vaso-occlusive crisis, that is painful crisis, aplastic crisis, splenic sequestration crisis, hyperhemolytic crisis, hepatic crisis, diacetylic litis, and acute chest syndrome. These are all common, especially with sufferers of sickle cell disease. They have many complications. In terms of treatment too, they differ. But one thing common is there is no cure for both. No effective medical treatment of albinism is currently available. Nitisinone, which is approved by the FDA for treating hereditary tyrosinemia type 1, elevates plasma thyroxine level and increases eye and ear pigment, because tyrosine is what is really lacking in the albinos. So this try to provide the same thing. Oxybrita plus the hemoglobin, because the hemoglobin is also the problem in a particular shape because of the sickle shape. So once it prevents the sickle shape, there will be no stacking and there will be no occlusion of the blood vessels. That reference Kim Smith Whitley, the MD head of research and development for global biology. The sickle cell disease treatment also shows how the various complications are treated. If there is a shortage of folic acid and the patient is down with sickness, at times people want to call it malaria. It is just the folic acid that needed to be supplemented, and the patient becomes better. If there is a shortage of blood, hemotransfusion, the blood is also transfused. When there is too much pain, the the vessels are blocked, the pains becomes worse, then they are given analgesic. Erythropoietin for when the blood loss is, so the erythropoietin produced by the kidney would be given by injection, and all these other areas, antibiotics and what have you, are what is given. By way of conclusion, the United Nations World Awareness Day for inborn errors of metabolism or autosomal recessive inheritance disease of 13th June for albinism and 19th June for STD is a clear indication that the awareness is necessary. So that really tells us that the concern from us, what is expected from families and friends, people, that is to create that necessary awareness that when there is a relationship, they should be afraid of career. This education should help more in making choices so that the children you are going to